What was the narrative here, though? And the narrative is the reason why this guy got that the award. In the NBA, what is the narrative for giving Jokic the award? He was not above and beyond when it came to statistics. He was not above and beyond when it came to win-loss ratio. Like he didn't create more wins for his team than SGA did or Luka did. So what is the narrative that propelled that? Other than the fact that you can say that he's the best big man in the game and maybe a generational big man, right? I think at this point we all are going to agree that he's generational as a big man. However, what is that narrative that for this year that propelled that to say, hey, this narrative is the reason why he won it? It just doesn't make any sense to me because you don't have the statistics, in my opinion, to back this up.
All About the Balls podcast with Mark Davis, Jake Winnikine, and Alan Tomasella. Good evening. This is All About the Balls podcast. I'm Mark Davis. We are finally back in the Sack House after what it seems like weeks we've been off. But I'm joined alongside tonight a two-man show with Alan Tomasella, who's fresh out of training, back in his Sack House. And we're here. We know we haven't talked much basketball in a while. We are going to kind of do an NBA talk, a recap of what's been going on, what we've missed. I've been to an NBA playoff game. Alan's been fucking watching basketball like crazy. Jake, unfortunately, has got some things going on, so he'll be back next week. But, Alan, man, how are you doing tonight, man? Welcome back into the Sack House.
Yeah, man, I'm doing fantastic. I'm glad to be back. I'm glad to be in here. Just want to talk some basketball, man. I've been enjoying it. Getting to go out with my battle buddies and watch the games and just kind of soak it all in. It's been a really good experience.
Yeah, and I was in Florida last week, May 3rd. It was Friday night. I went to the Orlando Magic game against the Cavs. It was game 6. Magic seemed like they might have been out, and all of a sudden, they fucking kicked it in high gear in the fourth quarter. I mean, shout out to Don Mitchell. We're going to talk about him in a few minutes. He dropped 50. Man was unstoppable. Like you said, he had every point in the fourth quarter. But, man, Orlando 407, they were rocking out there. It was fun.
I think the future for the Magic looks so good, man. I think Paolo, just give him a couple years. I mean, really, really young, just to bring his team to this point in his second year. We talk about Anthony Edwards. I know we're going to talk about him a little bit later, but how young he is. He's only 22 years old. Paolo's right behind him, and he's got nothing but growth to come up. And a lot of people are coming up with comparisons. Let him develop a drive game. Let him just get better, seeing the court and all that shit. I think he's going to turn out to be one of the best draft picks for a very long time. I just hope that his career doesn't go along the path of most Magic players that get drafted there.
And it sucked because game 7 they were up 18 points as well in Cleveland.
Yeah.
And Franz Wagner, he was pretty big, when they were winning, and he just had a bad game. You could tell he didn't look comfortable at all. Game 7, he was hesitant with his shots. He just didn't seem confident, and it sucks because Franz Wagner is a guy that, I grew on to watch play. I mean, he has a weird kind of funky shot, but he makes it when it matters. And game 7, it just unfortunately didn't fall for him. But Orlando's young, like you said, they're one of the youngest teams in the league too. And maybe they'll get a piece. Maybe Donovan Mitchell decides to go to Orlando instead of New York. Maybe they trade for Devin Booker. Maybe something happens. But,
It's looking really likely that they're going to end up with Klay Thompson, and I don't know how that's going to play out. I mean, Klay Thompson's obviously on his later years, but
Magic fans don't want him. But let's talk fresh. We're recording right now. It's like I said, it's Wednesday or Thursday, May 9th, actually, just 9:39 Eastern time. And we're about to kick off the show right before the Mavericks and Thunder tip off, and the Celtics and Cavs out. They just came out tight first half. And then all of a sudden, Donovan Mitchell does his thing. The Cavaliers start hitting their shots, and they win 118-94. And I know you're going to hammer it, but it just seems like Boston got outcoached, definitely got outplayed, and Tatum finally had a good game, something that he's been lacking the last couple of games, and they blew it. They blew a good Jason Tatum game. Yeah. Cleveland stole home court. The series doesn't start until a road team wins, and that's what it finally did.
Absolutely.
Road team won this round. So kick us off here with this one.
Yeah, I watched this game, and there was spurts where Boston just made shots, and that's the team that they have. That's how they've been all year long. They've been sporadic. They make shots, and then a good coach in the playoffs, a good coach can take that momentum away. A good coach can find ways to scheme guys out of it, and then make tough, make shots tough, right? And that's really all you have to do. And what ends up happening is the teams that are consistent, and you watch this game, the Cavs just stayed consistent throughout the entire game, and you saw them. The Boston Celtics would go on these spurts. They would make an adjustment. Boom, they start missing shots. And then the Cavs came back. In the first quarter and in the second quarter, they got down in both of those quarters. And then they fought back by the end of them. The Cavs, marks of a great coach, or I'm not going to say great, all right, but marks of a good coach and good coaches are teams that start well and finish well, right? So you can have a lull in the middle of the quarter, but as long as you start a quarter well and you close a quarter well, you're always going to be in that quarter. And what ended up happening in the first and the second quarter is exactly that. The Cavs closed the quarters out and were able to tie it back up. And then in the second half, they made those second half adjustments in the locker room, and Boston just couldn't make those shots that they were making before. Those tough shots, they're coming out and they're hitting sporadically. Like you said, Jason Tatum finally had a game. I think you have to account for him being a guy. There's all these guys right now in the league. We're going to talk about them. There's these guys in the league that elevate their game during the playoffs, right? And then there's the guys that kind of stay even. And then there's the guys that dip down. And Jason Tatum, just throughout his career, has shown that he's one of those guys that kind of dips down in the playoffs. So you have to have a solid team around him. And this kind of just goes back to my point when we were talking about playoff predictions. I know I've gotten a lot wrong, obviously. I mean,
we all have. We all have.
We look at the board back there. All right, Lakers in 26. I don't know if that's 26 games, 2026, or maybe 26 years later. I don't know. However, when we talk about the Cavs, they are a much deeper team. And like the first guy off the bench for the Celtics is Peyton Pritchard. Is Peyton Pritchard better than Karis LeVert? No, Karis LeVert is miles ahead of what Peyton Pritchard is. And so you look at these teams, one guy goes down. Now you got to insert Al Horford into the starting lineup. Al Horford may have been great once upon a time. However, he's not that guy anymore, and he's not going to give you what he used to give you. So I just look at these teams and I'm like, the Cavaliers are the deeper team, and they may not have the peak, although Donovan Mitchell is balling. Like, Donovan Mitchell is crazy. You said it. You were at that game. You saw it. He scored every single point in the fourth quarter. That guy's a certified bucket, all right? But the peaks of the players may be higher on Boston Celtics, but the team itself for the Cavs is a much more consistent team, much more solid, I think, all the way through. And I think that's what you're seeing. They're long on the defensive end. They can get out and they can make adjustments defensively, and they can take down these different spurts that the Celtics give them. So I said Cavs in 6 when we were talking about this series before. It's very possible that the Celtics can go into game 3 and steal home court right back. However, I really do feel like this team is the best team that the Celtics are going to play in this playoffs because of injuries right now. And by the time they get to if they get to the finals, if they get past this team and they get past the next one and they get into the finals with the West, I mean, we'll see what happens there. I personally don't have them making it there. I don't think that they're going to get past the Cavs.
And honestly, the Celtics are lucky that Jared Allen's not playing, and they better hope he does not play going into Cleveland, because if he plays without Porzingis on the court, the Cavs are going to eat them alive in the paint. It's just the way it's going to be. You have two big bodies there with Mobley and Jared Allen. When he plays, if he does, he's been out for like 4 or 5 games straight now. I think it's 5 now, and if he plays game 3 or game 4 and Cleveland goes in there, Cleveland could leave Cleveland up 3-1 going back into Boston, and then we'll see what happens there. But no, like the bench, like you said, the bench for Boston tonight, besides Pritchard, did not look good. Not at all.
No.
I mean, and Jaylen Brown, he had 7 of 17, but he was 0 for 6 from the 3-point line. So that's not a help right there. Derek White didn't look like Derek White, and Drew Holiday was not a non-factor day on offense. So it was just one of those games where you wasted Jason Tatum's 25 points, something like he finally got a good game back. Maybe this built confidence for them. I know Jake said in the chat, I'm not sure if it's true, but the coaches never won a game as a 10-point favorite. Don't know if it's true or not, but
yeah, I think we got to.
That's not a good thing. That's not a good thing. I mean, obviously, you guys don't like the coach. You guys hate
Oh yeah,
Boston's
no. I
coach.
mean, because what is he doing that's making adjustments? Every single time they go into a timeout, what play are they running when they come out? They're just coming out and doing the exact same thing that they were doing prior to the timeout. He's just sitting down and he's like clapping his hands saying, "All right, guys, let's go. Let's go, guys." That's not coaching. As a Lakers fan, I've been having to deal with this with Darvin Ham. I don't know. You guys have seen it. I've been sharing in the Discord the different TikToks of the guy actually breaking down the footage that were just coaching mistakes, like how we were just staying off of bodies, we weren't rotating, we weren't making adjustments, we weren't doing things that a normal coach would just call out. And it's the same thing with Joe Mazzulla. He's not giving X's and O's. He's not coming out and giving great advice to his players in game. So he's just relying on their experience and relying on them to come out and make plays. And they're not guys that are going to go out and do that. They're just not. So when they get into these lows and they start missing these shots and the other team is just consistent eating you alive in the paint and getting offensive rebounds and just taking it to you, what are you going to do to stop that?
Yeah, and I'm not typically a Boston fan, but I do want to see Boston advance because I want to see Boston, New York. I want to see the rivalry. I want to see Porzingis go back into New York. That's another like storyline that people forget about. But Boston needs to wake up. And unfortunately, if Porzingis doesn't play, it wasn't a big factor game one.
Yeah,
but game two it was.
It was, yeah. And we talk about Boston needing wake up calls all the time, whatever. They had their little wake up call against the Miami Heat when Jimmy Butler went out and Miami went into Boston and won. Like, I get that. However, there should be no reason why this team, as talented as it is, needs that wake-up call in every single series. And that's why I don't think that this game was a wake-up call. I don't think they were lackadaisical. I don't think that they weren't trying. I think that they got outcoached, they got outplayed, and they got out-hustled.
Yeah.
And that's the reason why they lost this game.
And losing and getting a wake-up call to Cleveland compared to Miami is totally different because Cleveland's healthy. Yeah, Jared Allen's hurt. But you have Donovan Mitchell, your best player, who's playing. You have everybody else out there. It's not the Miami Heat without Jimmy Butler. It's not a team that does not have superstar talent. They have superstar talent. They have talent. Garland's a good player. Mobley's out there playing good defense. It's not – you have LeVert on the bench. Like, it's not a bad team. It's not the Miami Heat.
You got Max Strus coming off the bench. You got Okoro coming off the bench. You got George coming off the bench.
Well, Strus starts. Okay, and Strus was in game 7 against Orlando. He was quiet all game. And then the fourth quarter or third quarter, I think it was one of the two quarters, he hit like 10 or 11 points in that quarter. And that's all you needed. Like, you needed him just to have that little spark. And that's what – and I love Strus. I mean, yeah, he had his moments with Miami up and down. But with Cleveland, you have Donovan Mitchell. So it's not the same as – with Jimmy Butler, who's not as a true scorer as a Donovan Mitchell. So Strus can be a guy that's going to sit out there all game long and just fucking take threes. Eventually, it's going to hit, and that's what's going on. And I like this Cleveland team. Like, you might have been on something. You might have been on to when we first predicted it. Cleveland going. You had Cleveland in the finals, I believe, if I'm not mistaken.
No, I had the Sixers. I had the Sixers making it, so I'm way off.
Okay, never mind. I knew Jake did. I didn't think you did. I thought you had Cleveland getting there.
Yeah,
but maybe I was wrong. But no. Yeah. Let's transition, though, to the hottest topic right now, Alan, and that's Michael Jordan's son, Anthony Edwards. Legitimate son or illegitimate son, Anthony Edwards. The swagger of this kid, you and Jake, I didn't have Minnesota winning the first round, but I didn't shit on them like you guys did. You guys said that the two bigs can't get it done. Well, they fucking proved Rudy Gobert was not going to get written off against the Phoenix Suns. He did not get written off game 1 as well against the defending champion, the Denver Nuggets. Yeah, I missed game 2 because of baby, and a lot of people gave him shit like Gilbert Arenas, but that's whatever. They didn't need him. So, but Anthony Edwards, man, is this kid the real deal? Is he the face of this league coming up? Is he the guy that can get Minnesota to the finals this year? Not in the future, this year.
Yeah, you know what? I got to tell you, I 100% owe an apology to the Minnesota Timberwolves as a whole. I owe an apology to Rudy Gobert. And I owe an apology to Karl Anthony Towns. And most of all, I owe an apology to Anthony Edwards, Ant-Man. This guy out here just it's remarkable, the just similarities in the game and plays, right? And plays. You'll see these two plays happen simultaneously of Michael Jordan and Ant doing something on the court, like when he dunked on 3 guys against the Suns in that pivotal game. him doing the step back and the shoot, him knocking down the three and doing the shrug. Like this guy, I know we all saw him during this season. He was the reason that they propelled into this top tier team. And no discredit to Rudy Gobert and what he's done to them defensively, but Ant is the reason why they were the 3 seed, why they moved up so much. However, Ant is 100% the catalyst for it. And when you see how this guy's just got that dog in him, man, I don't know if we're witnessing the beginning of a career, very much so like we did with Michael Jordan, like we did with Kobe, like we did with LeBron. I mean, 22 years old, coming into these series, he's not afraid of anybody, and he is going to let you know when he's balling on you, and he's not going to take no reservations. After the game, he'll say, "Yeah, that's my dog, that's my OG, that's the guy that I look up to, one of my favorite players." But on the court, I'm giving everything to him. And
Also
you
told him
can
to suck
see
it too.
He told him to suck it too.
Yeah.
Man, I got them completely wrong. And what I'm seeing in this series with the Nuggets is where Jokic is actually uncomfortable, right? Jokic does not want to be at the top of the key. He's a guy who wants to get down low and create all of those mismatches, create all those cutting, create the double teams, and get people moving on the court. And it opens up those threes because that's how they move the ball. And what's happening right now is they can stick Rudy Gobert on him down low, and he can't do anything. It's a double. There is no double team needed because Gobert can lock him up in the post. And so all of that cutting is not happening, especially when you consider how long they are with McDaniels and six man of the year. You got all these guys that are super long that can move and really cut off those passing lanes. Yes, Jokic is getting his assist. It's gonna happen. He's a stat stuffer, and that's what happens. We talked about it before when players just have the ball in their hands so much. It's gonna happen. They're gonna get assists. Shout out Pat Bev for that. However, Jokic is uncomfortable being left in a position where he has to shoot the three so much. And that's what they're forcing on the Nuggets right now, is not getting Jokic on the move, right? They need to start setting pick and rolls and getting him on the move where he can then be the pass catcher on that pick, so that then he can create movement. You're going to have to double team on that because Rudy Gobert is not as quick, especially on the pick and rolls. I just don't see them having a guy who can go out and actually create those pick and rolls movements because Jamal Murray is not himself right now. And at the end of the day, let's all face it, the Nuggets are a different team when they're not playing the Lakers. Like, Michael Porter Jr. hits fucking everything. He's fucking laser dotted on the tee when it comes to shooting against the Lakers. But all of these guys that are making shots, they're on their fucking knees trying to propose to fucking Edwards as he points at him because he just crossed him up so bad. So
it's not even that. It's like I was listening. I forgot who it was on ESPN. Yeah, I was watching them this morning, I was watching highlights of them this morning, and they said like you said from them, it's not like they're playing a play-in team. The Nuggets are, or a team that just skated by. Like, for example, even Miami, we got to the finals. We're a fucking 8 or 7 seed last year. They're playing the best defense in basketball right now.
Yeah.
They were the number 1 defense all season long. They looked phenomenal against the Suns. And you have everyone on the offensive end doing their roles as well. Mike Conley, he didn't show up in game 2, but Mike Conley's been decent, especially against the Suns. He had some key shots. You have Naz Reid. When Cat went down, Naz Reid stepped his game up, and he propelled to be a good guy off the bench. And then, yes, you mentioned Cat. I mean, Cat is balling right now. And Rudy Gobert, he's playing his role, and he's actually making some key defensive plays in both series, especially against this Nugget series. I'm seeing them fucking swat away potential inbound passes inside the paint, potential alley-oops. He's not letting anything get near him, everything past him at least. And it's just the Denver Nuggets don't look comfortable. We saw Jamal Murray, we saw how he acted. We'll talk about that in a little bit when we talk about the Nuggets. Are they done or not? But we saw how he acted when he got frustrated with everything. The Timberwolves are just in their head. They are too big. They're too physical. They're too determined. And honestly, Mike Malone's being out-coached by a guy on the bench sitting behind his coaching staff with one leg, giving his assistant coach advice and how to run this team while he can't do everything in the huddle. He can't sit there and get in the ref's face. He's getting out coached by his assistant with Chris Finch's help, and that is bad. And he looks lost too. You saw he just got kicked out of the game when you got Mark Davis's face.
Oh yeah, no, and that's the thing. You know how they're being treated and refed compared to other teams. Like I get it, they're the reigning champs or whatever, but this behavior cannot be allowed. Like, oh, Jamal Murray throws a freaking heat pack at a ref and he gets $100,000 fine. He doesn't get suspended. He doesn't get anything. Like,
the ref
that's
said
ridiculous.
The ref said if they would have known who threw that, he would have been ejected out of the game. But
he should have been.
But no one knew who did it, and I understand that.
And Mike Malone getting directly in the face, going onto the court.
Dude, he didn't get a tech.
He didn't even get a tech. Like, that is ridiculous behavior.
And Rick Carlisle got ejected. By the same ref.
Yesterday.
I guarantee the other Mark Davis, not myself, the third Mark Davis, because the owner is the Raiders, but the third Mark Davis in the world, I think he saw the heat that he was getting for not getting rid of Mike Malone, and Rick Carlisle got canned. He got ejected quick.
Yeah. I think Carlisle's playing that coaching game where he has to. He's going to take that fine. You know, obviously, I don't think he's going to be suspended for getting ejected.
No.
However, I think he's playing that coach's game because when you do look at some of the fouls that are happening in that series, you know, it's kind of hit or miss. Game one was pretty tough.
But, game 2 wasn't as bad, but game 1 was pretty brutal.
But I think he wanted to send a message so that going back into Indiana, they had an opportunity there. And I think that's a really savvy coach move. He knew that game was already out of hand at that point, and it was time to just go ahead and let it go. But, you know, it's either way, like you said, you know, the reverse action of that, when you talk about how Mike Malone blew up in the second quarter, I believe it was, he blew up in Mark Davis's face. But then at the end of a game, it's okay to eject Rick Carlisle because he was being irate. But this man walked onto the court, I mean, on the free throw line, and was yelling in your face. Like that's just unacceptable behavior. And it makes the Nuggets look like crybabies at this point.
Well, that's why, like, I think legitimately watching them play, like, I get it. We were all, well, most people were high. I know I'm the one that picked the Nuggets to win, but maybe they're just one of those true classic one and done type. I mean, they just don't look comfortable. They don't look themselves when they're the ones being bullied. You know, they're the ones that have a target on their back, and then you're not playing defense. I get it. Anthony Edwards is going to get his, but you can't let the other guys get theirs as well.
I'm going to say something, people are going to hate on me for saying it. But this Timberwolves team is very reminiscent of the bubble Lakers, being that number one defense in the league. They're long, quick on the outside, and they featured a too big system, right? And I think that we look at that series during the bubble, and everybody's going to discredit the bubble because it was the bubble. However, the Lakers won because of their defense that year. That is the reason why they won. And I think you're looking at this Timberwolves team, and shout out to Tim Connolly, I believe that is his name, the GM, who built up the Nuggets, left the Nuggets to go to the Wolves, made the moves to get Rudy Gobert, and now look at where they are, this year. And
we all laughed at the Rudy Go. We all laughed at it.
Everybody did. Everybody did because it was way too much. It was way too much capital to be sending. Like it reset the trade market for so many guys. Rudy Gobert was getting 6 picks traded for him, plus players and blah 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 blah,
and getting paid.
What is Kevin Durant getting, right? And so it reset the whole trade market. And now we're about to go into this new CBA where trades are discouraged and different things make it harder to move. Signings and free agency are harder to make. So now you're going to see a lot more trades happening in this new CBA. So what is that market now when you see a guy like Rudy Gobert, who is really only impacting your offense or your defense, and is now look at what the capital that they gave up to get him, but now look at the transcendence of the team. And really, I think it goes down to the archetype of the team and the building of the team. But I do feel like there was a very big similarity between this year and the Lakers year. And I'll go back and I'll say it. I don't want to stick too much on the Lakers because we suck. We're losers. But I want to just say here that the Lakers' biggest mistake was when we traded away our depth and our cores, in our too big system for Russell Westbrook. That was the biggest mistake that we could have ever made. And you look at this year's Timberwolves team, and you see what that team really is, and it's all about the depth and length that they have on the outside and their ability to control the paint with a too big system. So, shout out to them. Ant Edwards, I think he's just unstoppable right now. The guy is balling. However, there's another guy in the Eastern Conference that I just cannot sing enough praises for this guy. I actually was singing his praises before the playoffs. Me and both Jake were. Jalen Brunson balling out of his mind.
Oh, dude.
Four straight 40-point games. And when they start talking about Michael Jordan, he's like, stop. I don't want to hear it. But it's true. He's the only player. He's the only player since Michael Jordan to have 4 straight 40-point games in the playoffs. He's averaging over 40 points in the playoffs. He's just going insane. And when you look at that team, what are they without Jalen Brunson, man? It's just when you look at how many injuries they have and what that team is, I'm blown away by that team. They're electric. I think that they're the best thing to watch on TV right now, the most electric thing that you can watch on TV right now. These guys are playing crazy.
I mean, and like you said, what are they without him? I mean, and we're going to talk about the awards and how they're a joke, but I mean, yeah, without him, because Julius Randle got hurt, and now they got some injuries in the playoffs. But yeah, this is a good defensive team with the guys around him, and you just don't know what guys outside Jalen Brunson are going to have a 15-point game, an 18-point game. And that's the thing, is it's not like a consistent guy here and there. Yeah, you have the Nova 3, 3 of these guys play with each other in college. I believe they won a championship together. That's cool. But yeah, like outside of Jalen Brunson, the New York Knicks are lost. I mean, maybe next year it won't just be Jalen Brunson. I have that prediction that maybe Donovan Mitchell comes there, but that's next year's talk. And this year, Jalen Brunson, like in the playoffs, yeah, he is either 1A or 1B, the most exciting thing to watch right now. Obviously, it's him or Anthony Edwards. And the East, it's definitely Jalen Brunson. I could give 2 shits right now with the Celtics because no one looks that good, in my opinion. They're just winning. The Cavs, yeah, Donovan Mitchell is probably the third guy I'm excited to watch. But, yeah, in the East, it's New York. And maybe Jalen Brunson is what it takes to just win the East this year. Yeah, it's not the most competitive conference, but maybe Jalen Brunson can do it. Like you said, 40-point games. He's balling. He's at least dropping 30s, 40s every single game, it seems like. And he's making shots when it matters. And even when it doesn't matter, he's just putting shots in the hoop.
And you see like defensive mistakes happening all the time. Like the announcers were talking about, I believe it was Reggie Miller was saying it. Like Jalen Brunson is a 31% 3-point shooter. Why are you closing out so hard on him on the 3-point line, allowing him to blow by you even with an injured leg, and then get underneath you to be able to get that foul call? And then he's making these tough contested shots and where he's getting these and-1s. And he's just been a maestro on the court. You look at their minutes without him, and then you look at the minutes with him, and it's crazy. I think they said that he was off the court for 21 minutes and they're minus 25.
It's like LeBron. Oh, it's like LeBron back. When he takes 2 minutes, they're at negative 10 already without LeBron. I mean, that's just the way it feels like.
Exactly. But when we look at the East as a whole, especially over the last couple of years, all it takes is one guy. All it takes is one superstar to carry a team, right? And I'm at the point now where I'm saying, I know a lot of people are kind of hesitant on it, and we talk about sports media talk, all that stuff. They're like, oh no, he's not a superstar yet, blah, blah. Fuck that. Jalen Brunson is a superstar. He's proving it day in and day out, night in and night out. That guy's out balling every single day. He's the number 1 guy on the team. He still can't be stopped. And it's not like they have great supporting cast for him. Yes, they played together and they have familiarity. And they're all playing 45 plus minutes. Like this is just crazy. And Anunoby goes out. Anunoby's out for game 3. I think that the Knicks are just kind of like, hey, chill. We don't need game 3. We don't need game 3. So you take that game out, right? And come back game 4. Take that game. We can steal that game on the road, and then we can close it out at home, blah, 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 right? I don't think that the Pacers have an opportunity to beat the Knicks. And I don't think that it's particularly close. Refs aside, like I just don't think that they have the talent. I mean, they're a really good team as constructed, and we look at the comparisons between Siakam and Turner with Rudy Gobert and Cat, and And I think we all know which one is the better
Oh
the
yeah.
better big man duo there. And so,
Well,
you
Cat's got the
know,
best offensive out of the four of them. Cat's the best offensive,
he's the best offensive player,
and then
absolutely, out of
Gobert
that
is the
four.
better defensive player out of all four of them.
100%. So, like we know that, but in the East, is that enough? And in most situations, it is. But again, I look at the others on the Pacers, and I just don't think that they have the the good bench to come out and do it. Right now they're killing the Knicks, bench scoring, but it's not enough because the Knicks, Josh Hart, DiVincenzo, Brunson, all of these. Anunoby had 28 last night before he got injured and was out of the game. Like, they got guys stepping up all across the court, and no matter the injuries, they're still putting games together and they're still getting wins at the end of the day because they're hustling and they're playing better defense. And we saw that last year with Miami. If you can be outcoached and you can out hustle teams and you can out defense teams in the East, you have a legitimate chance to make it to the finals.
Yeah, and back to the superstar status real quick. Jalen Brunson will hit true superstar status to me once he gets to the ECF, because that's something that they haven't done since Patrick Ewing. I believe since Patrick Ewing.
Yeah, I believe
Melo never did it. Melo never came into New York, and I think he won one series in his New York time. And if Jalen Brunson gets to the
he got swept in the second round. So
yeah, and if he can get into the Eastern Conference Finals, especially in the New York media right now, probably arguably the biggest sports media in the world, something the Knicks haven't been good in a while. Now the Rangers are good again, so now you have two New York teams in the Garden playing good, and it's cool to see the Rangers and the Knicks playing good. I know we've been rooting for the Knicks to stay afloat because the NBA is good when the Knicks are good. I mean, it's fun, it's exciting, but that's when he hits that superstar status to me. If he can get them, once he gets them to that part, but don't slow down. Don't slow down against Boston. Don't slow down against Cleveland, whoever it's going to be.
Yeah.
Keep going, man. Like, keep going. Get them to the finals. If you get to the finals with New York Knicks, that'd be special. It'd be special.
You're automatically propelled into superstardom. It doesn't matter what happens in the finals. You get to the finals with the Knicks, you bring them back to that tier. Like, you've already transcended superstardom, and it's just because it's kind of like the Dallas Cowboys in the NFL. If Dak was to bring the Dallas Cowboys to the Super Bowl, that legitimizes his entire career. He's now
he's a Hall of Fame. He's a Hall. Yeah, he's
no matter what happens in the final in the Super Bowl, So,
but I forgot who said it in the chat, if I saw it in the chat or not. But I thought it was a little disrespectful to already say he's the best Knick, because Patrick Ewing did lead them to a finals. Now, it was a little disrespectful to Patrick Ewing. I thought, not taking anything from Jalen Brunson, but he hasn't been a Knick long enough for me to sit there and say he's already an all-time great Knick. Now, he's getting there. I mean, he's going to keep getting there, but
I agree with that. I don't believe it was me that said that. I didn't. And
I think it was a picture someone posted, and I was so put a picture up, and I was like, it was a weak comparison, because I get it. Patrick Ewing wasn't scoring 40-point games, but Patrick Ewing's role back in the 90s was a little different than
the Knicks had a solid team then too. Like, you had Allen Houston, you had guys around him, and I don't know, but I do agree that he hasn't done enough to be like the best Knick of all time. But like, the greatest free agent signing, I mean, that's kind of close. I mean, and nobody saw that coming either. Like, we're all sitting there like, oh, you're gonna pay him that money? All right. I mean, Mavs are smart for letting him go for that money. Let him go, right? And then now we see why. Now we see what's happening. And shout out to the Mavs, who right now, I mean, Jake had them in the finals. Mavs are up right now in this game. They're contesting pretty hard. 30.
Well, speaking of them, SGA and the Thunder, another team that, based on the youth, I know yourself and Jake. I said out of the Timberwolves and the Thunder, I would say give the Thunder a little more of a chance than, I mean, obviously I had the Thunder actually losing this series, but I don't know, SGA and the Thunder, man, they just have that. Yeah, they're the youngest team as a 1 seed ever, but they have that chemistry that even the Thunder, like, I was actually listening to it, and I went back and I was watching some stuff. This Thunder team, compared to the young Thunder team with Kevin Durant, Westbrook, Harden, Ibaka, this Thunder team, I believe, has better chemistry than the Thunder did back then in 2012 when they made the finals. I don't know, just something about it. You can see Chet, you can see SGA, you can see Williams. They just seem happy. They seem fluent, like, with each other. Like, it's like just one, like, rhythm. It's one motion with all of them.
even though we saw all of these, teams kind of jump up this year, I think that nobody is questioning the coach of the year, Dejanalt from the Thunder. I don't think anybody's questioning that. I mean, you look at this team and the way that they're competing with the youngest team in the history to be a one seed. Like, it's very impressive. SGA is a superstar. Like, we're talking about, is Jalen Brunson there? Is is fucking hell, I'm
Yeah, you drop.
brain fart. Anthony Edwards, has he reached that yet? Superstar. But SGA is that superstar, and you see the team that they have around them. You want to take it back to the Thunder when they had Kevin Durant, Russell Westbrook, and James Harden, and they were going on their runs. I do agree that this team has better chemistry. They all know their place. They all know their spots on the team. And SGA is the maestro. He's gonna get them in their spots. And guess what? This guy's gonna put up 30 points. I mean, 50 times this year he put up 30 points, and he's one of the most. He's only a few players that's done that this year. Put up 30 points in 50 games, and he's still gonna get assists. He's still gonna get rebounds. He's still gonna be out on the fast break. He's still gonna be pushing the team. And I really think that this team is legit. Again, another team that I think that we got wrong. However, I can't remember off the top of my head if I had the Pelicans winning. I think that I said if Zion did not play, that the Thunder were going to advance and the Mavs were going to beat them. I do still have the Mavs winning this series, but I do think that this is not going to be an easy series. I do think it's going to get pushed to 7 games. And what's going to happen is you're going to see the experience. Wow, this Thunder team has shown that experience really doesn't mean nothing when you're being coached well and you're coming out and you're playing at a high tier. It doesn't matter if you have experience. However, when game 7 comes around, that's when experience matters the most. And you've got a guy who's a guaranteed bucket at any point in the game. When the lights are the brightest, Kyrie Irving is going to turn unk mode and he's going to go out and he's going to get a bucket. And one thing, I had a conversation, and this is real quick. I know we didn't bring this up in topics. I had a conversation while I was out on my drill when we were out in the field, and we were talking, and we were talking about the greatest skills, right? Of the players that are the greatest skilled out of all time. And my argument was always going to be Kobe, and it's always going to be Kobe. I'm always going to say Kobe was the greatest skilled player, right? I'm not going to sit here and tell everybody Kobe was the greatest player of all time. But when it came to skills and his ability to do everything, every single thing on the court, I felt like Kobe was the greatest skilled player the game had ever seen. And people were legitimately arguing with me about Kyrie Irving. And my commentary back to them was, if Kyrie was 6'6", he'd be the greatest player of all time.
Yeah, if he's a little bigger, I can see that, yeah.
If he was 6'6", he'd be the greatest player of all time because he does have that skill set and he is amazing. I mean, you see some of these shots and you're just like, stop it. Just stop it. This is not fair. What are you doing? Crossing them up, going left, going right, going backwards. Then you fade away from the 3-point line. You're fading away diagonally and knocking it down from the 3-point line. Like, guy is insane. Unk has come out to play. And I just think that when it comes to game 7, that's when that experience is going to hit. And I do think this is going to go game 7, and I think the Mavs take it. However, the question is are the Thunder legit? 100% they are legit, and I had them wrong too.
And they're not selfish too. That's another piece. Like, they don't care. Like, there's times where SGA won't take a shot for like minutes because he trusts his guys. He trusts his running mates with him. And you can see after games, like, you'll see Chet have an interview. You'll see Williams have an interview. Of course, SGA gets interviews most of the time because that's his team. But they all, as soon as they get interviewed, you see the 4 or 5 of them just come up with each other. They're doing the little war chant they have, and they fucking move on like it's business. And that's what you like to see from a young core. And back to Kyrie real quick. It's a shame that Kyrie wanted to go and be his own man and not play with it. Because if Kyrie would have never left Cleveland, LeBron would have never left Cleveland. And just imagine the run that those two would have had together if they could have been 1A and 1B with each other. But that's a topic for the summer. But no, I thought that'd have been a good thing. And speaking of LeBron, man, the Lakers, they of course do what they do. They fire a coach that doesn't like, and that's why I said it's funny because Frank Vogel got fired too. So like, superstar talent that you coach, you're always the scapegoat. And if you win, you're the scapegoat. Ask Frank Vogel. He got fired when he won. He got fired if he loses. he should just probably stay. He probably should just retire, to be honest, because it's a lose-lose for him no matter what he does. But what's next for Phoenix, and what's next for Los Angeles?
Yeah. So I mean, being a Los Angeles biased player, guy out here who loves the team, and at the end of the day, I'm going to start with the Suns. And news out there is that they want to go after Mike Budenholzer. That is also the Lakers' first option too, is Mike Budenholzer. But I think that there's rumblings. The players in Phoenix want Chauncey Billups. Now, is that feasible? Because he's a coach of the Trailblazers. I don't know how legitimate that can happen. Do they have to trade? They don't have very many picks. They still have their picks for this year, but are they willing to trade those to get Chauncey Billups on the team just to appease the players? I don't think that that's a smart move. There's a lot better options out there, as far as coaches go. But what I will say is this: I think that both teams, Frank Vogel as a whole is a good coach. He needs an offensive guru as an offensive almost as an offensive coordinator on his coaching staff, and they didn't have that with the Suns. Coupled the fact that they did not have a point guard, so they were not
the
able.
Fucking team, the players fucked up and they choke. I mean, he's the
Yeah, no,
he's the escape.
stuff.
He's the scapegoat. He really is.
Right.
No, true definition.
He is. He was brought there to bring a defensive presence to the team, and then they didn't go out and get the players that they needed to actually run an offense. So that's as much on the GM and the owner as it is on him as a coach. And like you said, he's the scapegoat there. Is it fair? No, but that's how life is. But what I also say is this: when it came to the Lakers and hiring Darvin Ham, I felt like it was going in two different directions. You're trying to build a team that's going to be competitive and take this team to the next level, and you go out and you get a first-time head coach to be your coach. And I don't think that it was the right move, especially when Darvin Ham has not ever really been an X and O guy. He's always been a player's coach. So he's always the guy who's kind of just galvanized the team. And you could tell that you don't need that when you have LeBron. Go back to all of the times that he's had a coach. You don't need a coach that galvanizes the team. You need a coach that's going to put him in his place with X's and O's. You have to be as smart as LeBron to coach him, because he's not going to respect your opinion if you're not coming up with something that he hasn't thought of. And you talk about Tyronn Lue. That was the greatest coach that I think that's the greatest coach that LeBron has ever played with. And
second greatest.
Second to Eric Spoelstra.
Spoelstra wasn't Spoelstra yet because Spoelstra didn't have the respect because he had the big three. Yeah. It didn't show that. I mean, he hasn't won since the big three, but we've seen him get far without them.
No, we have, and we've seen him do it with significantly less talent. And I said it earlier this year in the podcast that Eric Spoelstra is hands down the best coach in the league. And that statement is still true. But I think that at the time, like at his time of coming in as a coach and where Tyronn Lue was as a coach, I think that Tyronn Lue could actually talk to LeBron and make him believe that the X's and O's that he was coming up with made sense. And this was the reason why we're going to do it. And that's how they had that success. And I don't think that Darvin Ham was the solution for the Lakers when we hired him. And obviously we've seen it. And there's so many times I cannot believe how long it took for Darvin Ham to find the right lineup when we had the blueprint last year. We had the blueprint in the playoffs last year, and then it took you 50 games into the season to find it again. I just can't believe it. And you look at all of those in-game adjustments, you look at all of those things. Like I said, the TikTok of that coach that was breaking down footage, this is just rudimentary, just base level coaching standards. And he was not implementing any of them. He wasn't coming up with anything. And was it because the team didn't respect him, or was it because he just didn't know them? And so we look at this team, and I do think we need to go out and get a guy like Mike Budenholzer. Like, that's a guy 100% that I think we can bring in and will be respected. There's been rumors of Rajon Rondo, JJ Redick. Are those guys that LeBron would trust? I think obviously, Bron's got that podcast with JJ Redick. I think he believes in his X's and O's. I think that he believes in his basketball IQ. However, would that just be a puppet coach for LeBron? I think you got to go out and you got to get a guy like Mike Budenholzer, 100%. That's my number one coaching advantage right here. And yes, I do believe that it is just a coaching hire away. I do not believe that it is very much a roster error when it comes to the Lakers. We are long on the outside. We can defend. We can go out and we can score points. We saw it this year. We went from being the number one defensive team to being the number one offensive team in 2 years. So, on back-to-back years, like we just flipped the script and we were able to do those things. And not for the entire year, but post trade deadline, we were the number one offense, same as last year. Post trade deadline, we were the number one defense. And you see the different things when it comes to our roster. I don't think that that's the big issue here. We've got to go out and we've got to get a coach that can hold players accountable and is going to make the defensive adjustments and the offensive adjustments, because there was too many times we had lulls in our offense and we were just not getting buckets. I mean, how was Anthony Davis not getting involved in those games? And yes, you can put it on the player and you can say, hey, he's not being aggressive. But at the same time, as a coach, you've got to see that and you've got to start dialing up plays to get him easy looks so that he can get involved in the game plan.
Now, when it comes to the Suns, it's just unfortunate because they don't have much money to spend. They don't. They have draft picks there's not their draft picks. Like people say they don't have draft. No, they have theirs coming. Like they don't have theirs coming up. They have other ones that they control. But when it comes to the Lakers, honestly, if I'm a coach, I don't want to coach the Lakers at this point of LeBron's career. And I love LeBron James. I love everything he's done for the Miami Heat. I've loved it past the Miami Heat. Everything he's done with the Cavs. With the Lakers, yes, he did win in the bubble, but I don't want to coach LeBron and the Lakers at this point of his career because we don't know how long he's going to be there. We don't know, honestly, the certainty of the roster, because the roster, to most of us, it is questionable. The bench isn't that good. The starters, we're going to see what's going to happen there, but I don't want to do it. If I'm going to coach the Lakers, I want to wait until LeBron's gone, and I want to give it a couple of years to see what happens with the rebuild. I just don't want the Lakers at this point of LeBron's career, and that's no disrespect towards LeBron James. It's not him being a puppet master, like some people say. It has nothing to do with that. I just don't want to deal with the headache of having that LeBron cloud over me, because now that might question my legitimacy of being an NBA coach for my future. That's the reason why I don't want to be a head coach for the Los Angeles Lakers at this point. LeBron's going to be 40 years old, 41 years old, something like that?
Yeah, he's going to be 40 years old. He's 39, so he's going to be 40 next year.
And it has nothing to do with LeBron. He's an all-time great, arguably the greatest of all time, depends on who you ask. Don't ask Jake, don't ask Doc. They'll tell you it's somebody else. But I just don't want to coach him at this point of his career. And I get it. Like Spoelstra and Ty Lue are probably the only two coaches, and Mike Brown nowadays. It took Mike Brown a while to get back to being a coach, but Spoelstra and Ty Lue are the only ones that survived it post LeBron James and Ty Lue had to move on from Cleveland, but Cleveland was a shit show. Spoelstra stayed and rebuilt it a little bit, but they're the only two coaches that have survived it. And I'm not saying he's ruined careers. I have my issues with some of the things, like, David Blatt got to the finals. Unfortunate, Kyrie and Kevin Love got hurt. Then you get fired in the middle of the season. Frank Vogel wins the championship. He's fired a couple years later because they get hurt, and they're fucking not the Los Angeles Lakers they were in the bubble year. And it's just that's the two coaches I had a problem with him getting fired. I believe LeBron had a hand in that, but that's not why I don't want to coach him. It's the uncertainty of the Los Angeles Lakers at this point of his career.
Yeah, but I think that the Lakers are in a really good position to retool here. We do have draft picks and we have players that we can trade away to go out and get a guy. And one guy that's out there that a lot of people are talking about, and this is a good one for Budenholzer, because Budenholzer is a guy who wants a point guard on his team, a ball dominant point guard on his team. And I think that if the Lakers go out and get Budenholzer, could we make a trade for Trae Young? I think that would be a significant deal, and that could bring our post LeBron era together when we're talking about Ant Davis, because we've now signed him up, we've locked him up, and he's wanting to sign an extension with the Lakers as well. The rumors out there right now is that LeBron's going to sign a 3-year max deal with the Lakers with a player option at the end. Is it worth giving him that? At the end of the day, it's going to be very much the same that we did with Kobe at the end of his career. We went out and we just signed him to that max deal because we take care of our players.
The difference is, no disrespect towards Kobe, but LeBron's going to be. We expect 100%. LeBron to be healthy at this point.
Absolutely, yeah. No,
LeBron's Iron Man, essentially.
The expectations that are placed on LeBron James at 39 years old is absolutely ridiculous. When you talk about how people are talking about him, just because he hasn't had that fall off. There's nobody else in the league that has had this longevity and played this long and had this great of a run, and he's being unfairly scrutinized and talk about, get other people's opinion on this, whatever. They're going to tell you, oh, it's LeBron. It doesn't matter if he's playing at that elite level and he should be held to those standards. But at the same time, like, you've got to understand he's 39 years old. He's going to be going into 40 years old, and he's going to be out here and he's going to average 25. He's going to average at least 7. He's going to average at least 8 assists. Like, it's ridiculous what he's going to do. And I think that we've got to get.
There's only one player in sports besides LeBron that has been expected to still win at this age of their career, and that was Tom Brady. They're the only two players. Now, Tom Brady wasn't scrutinized like LeBron James, but the expectations of winning at 40 years old was the same.
I think Tom Brady put that on himself because he made the move from the Patriots so late in his career, where LeBron has kind of done that in the prime of his career, and then he moved around, right? And so he kind of created that villain image, and then he really set the market when it came to players deciding that they were going to be the spearhead of their own careers. They were going to go out and forge their own paths, and if it was that they needed to move on to another team and put super teams together, all that stuff, like, he kind of started that trend. I think what we're seeing right now is a little backtrack into developing teams and building up teams through the draft and all these things, right? And yes, the Timberwolves were built on that Rudy Gobert trade, but a lot of their players that they have on that team are guys that they drafted and they've developed over time to become these guys. So I do think that there's a little bit, a changing of the guard back into, developing teams. And we're going to see that a little bit. We're going to see that a little bit more because the new CBA discourages teams from signing players in free agency. It's going to be a lot harder to do that. And so you're going to see a lot more trades and GMs making moves to try and build teams together, which isn't a bad thing. But I think that we're not going to see this super team era, kind of coming together. I think that this is kind of, reaching the end of that apex, and we're going to start coming back to teams building teams back up.
Even the Thunder, for example, like, I know they didn't draft Shea, but they got rid of Paul George for Shea, and they built the rest of the way through the draft. So, like, I mean, and Shea wasn't like, he wasn't who he was today. I don't think the Clippers even drafted Shea. I think they got him too. So, like, the fact that they gave him up for Paul George to pair with Kawhi Leonard and whatnot, but now he's who he is on the Thunder. Did people expect that back then? Not sure, but let's touch one topic though, Alan. One last one. That's the NBA awards. We've had some issues with the sixth man, the most improved player. Oh, I understand the most improved. I understand. I don't believe Jalen Brunson should have been most improved just because where he was at last year to where he's at this year. Yeah, it's a little better, but I'm okay with who got most improved. I'm okay with Maxey getting it because he truly had. Now, I get your argument, when Maxey was asked to be the guy, the Sixers weren't the same. But the defensive player of the year and the MVP, it just does. What criteria are we meeting here? They said Gobert won it because he anchored the best defense. Get it. He's a great defensive player. We're not saying that. Wemby should have probably gotten it. And then Shea or Luka should have probably gotten it.
Change that. It should have been Ant. It should have been Ant Davis. It should have been Anthony Davis should have won Defensive Player of the Year. That man is hated by the voters. It is ridiculous.
It could have been AD. It could have been AD or Wemby. It could have been either or. You could make an argument for either or.
For him not even to make the top 3 was a joke.
That's the joke. But yeah, if Wemby wins it over Anthony Davis, there probably isn't a true gripe like you would have.
I agree with that statement.
Like Luka and Shea should have probably won it. We could make an argument for Brunson, but Brunson wasn't in the top 3, so we can't argue for him right now because he wasn't even in the finals.
To steal what Charles Barkley said, there's 5 guys on that list that I think could have gotten votes, and I agree with all of them. It was Jokic, Luka, SGA, Brunson, and then he had another guy on there too.
Edwards. Edwards was good this year too.
I think it was Edwards too, but I mean,
I get why Joker got it. Like, I get why Joker gets it. Like, he kind of had like when Steph won it his first time, he had like 25 points, but he was the catalyst of the Warriors. They made that jump, but the Nuggets have already been here. So like that 25, 9 and 9, whatever it was, 25, 10, 9, whatever his stats lines. Yeah, it's great. But Luka's the first player to have 33, 9 and 9, and Shea was the best. Was on the best record team and averaged 30 points a game himself. So, like, I don't know. I don't know what Luka has to do to fucking win an MVP. I mean, with his stat line.
I don't think that Luka's ever going to win an MVP, and if he does, it's going to be a consolation one where he doesn't average the same stats that he normally does. It's going to be like a dial back, but they're going to just give it to him off of a, kind of like a consolation like they did with Joel Embiid. And that'll be his one. Kind of the same thing that they did with LeBron, with Kobe Bryant. And I don't think that that's fair at all, right? However, when we look at this year and we look at how these teams went through, for SGA to only get 15 votes, that is blasphemous in my opinion. Like it should have been 100% closer. Jokic had 79 first place votes for MVP, and it was not that big of a margin between these two players. And again, what is the criteria when you talk about the team that is built? We talk about the others when we say that the Nuggets are a championship level team. We talk about the others. Yes, there's Jokic, and yes, Jokic propels them to that. However, the others are the guys that make them that championship level team, right? But when you look at the Thunder, what are they? They're the youngest team in the entire league. And I don't give a fuck that you gave the coach the coach of the year as a consolation or whatever. SGA is the reason why that team is the number one seed. Yes, they all three had the same records. And then, yes, it was all based off of the conference records that separated them and why the Thunder got the one seed. However, there is no reason why the Thunder should have even been in this position, and that was the outlier. The outlier in this situation was the fact that the Thunder were even in the conversation, that the Thunder were the number one seed, and they were propelled solely off of SGA. He had over 30 points in over 50 games. This is a guy who went out and propelled his team to be this team. And for you to come out in the most competitive the Western Conference has ever been. Like, I cannot remember a time when 10 teams were over 10 games over 500. 10 teams were over 10 games over 500. That is remarkable. And SGA was the best player on the best team. And I cannot understand how this fell back on Jokic. And yes, maybe the voters' mind was like, hey, we don't really know who to give it to, so we're just going to default to Jokic because he's got the PER stats, or he's got this stat, or he's got that stat. He's a stat stuffer, blah, 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 all that stuff. But guess what? If Jokic is not on that team, I guarantee you they're still winning games. I guarantee you that team can still pull together at least a top 10 seed in this Western Conference. So I don't know what the Thunder are going to be without SGA, but I guarantee you that they're not even making the playoffs without SGA. So it's blasphemous to me. I don't think that there's any consistency when it comes to the votes. Like you said, for Rudy Gobert to get the defensive player of the year because he was the number one defensive player he was the anchor of the number one defense, right? If that's the reason why you did it, then why don't you go to the offensive anchor of, and I'm not saying that MVP is an offensive stat, but look at everything that SGA was doing for that team. He is a guy who is out there averaging 2+ steals.
He's a two-way player. He's a two-way player. Yeah,
player. He's the best player this year was the best player on the best team.
All right. And another thing the voters should also look at is we expect the Denver Nuggets to be where they're at. One of the best records in the league. We didn't expect the Thunder to be the one seed. And after last year, what the Mavericks went through with that flame out where they didn't even make the playoffs, and people were still questioning that Luka and Kyrie Irving playing together, and Kyrie came back. And Luka averaged 33, 9, 9. It got his team back out of the play-in and as a 6 seed. Get it. It's not the 1 or the 2 seed. But you asked Luka to take over. He did it. And we didn't expect him to be in the playoffs where they're at. And now I'm not saying it's a playoff award, but they got him into the playoffs as a 6 seed. That's not what we expected the Mavericks to be.
I really, truly believe that the voters did not take into consideration the last month of the season when they made these votes, because when you look at how good the Mavericks were going into the playoffs, they were on like a 20-1 run in the last 21 games. They were absolutely balling out of their minds. That's how they jumped all the way up, because let's go back to the trade deadline. They were in the 8 seed. I believe they were in the play-in at that time. You know, they were kind of falling back, and then they went on this amazing run, like 20-1. Like they only lost 1 game going into the playoffs. That is an insane stat, and they just continued to ball out, and it was all solely because of not discrediting Kyrie. We all had that conversation earlier. We all understand what Kyrie is and who Unk is, especially during the playoffs. However, it is not done without Luka being the catalyst that he is for that team. Like you said, 33-9-9. No player's ever done that. Like, I just cannot fathom the voters' decision-making process when coming up to these votes. And I can only imagine that the reason why they made these votes the way that they did is because they voted on it through the first 3 months and did not care about the last couple of months.
I just wish, because we've had this argument with NFL too, I wish like both the NFL and the NBA like awards had we knew that, like, yeah, we have an idea what the criteria is, but like I would love to know like what the weight scale, like, you know, what the percentages are. Like, okay, is it team record is this amount, your stats are this amount, you know, what goes into both the NFL and the NBA? Because, you know, we made arguments of like every year the NFL MVP could be this, the NBA MVP could be this guy. But I would like to know what the criteria is, because it seems like the criteria and the narrative, like we say, they push an agenda.
Yeah, no.
Like which narrative are they pushing? Is it stats? Is it this? Is it that? Like, I get it. The quarterback's the most valuable player in the NFL.
We're thinking on the same wavelength here, because I was just about to bring up narrative. When we talk about narrative, that's always kind of that default gray zone that when it comes to these voting for awards comes to, where you can just say, hey, and a lot of times, like you said, in the NFL, it comes down to that. Hey, what was the narrative here though? And the narrative is the reason why this guy got that the award. In the NBA, what is the narrative for giving Jokic the award? He was not above and beyond when it came to statistics. He was not above and beyond when it came to win-loss ratio. Like, he didn't create more wins for his team than SGA did or Luka did. So what is the narrative that propelled that? Other than the fact that you can say that he's the best big man in the game and maybe a generational big man, right? I think at this point we all are going to agree that, you know, he's generational as a big man. However, what is that narrative that for this year that propelled that to say, hey, this narrative is the reason why he won it? It just doesn't make any sense to me, because you don't have the statistics, in my opinion, to back this up. And if we're always going to fall back on those stats, then why isn't Luka even being considered? Because he is the guy who has the stats. He is the guy who goes out and balls. He is the best play of the year, right? Voted on by the fans, voted on by other players in the NBA. The best play of the year is a defensive play by Luka Doncic. So you cannot say that he was not available and did not play and give his effort on the defensive end. He did it all year long, and you're seeing it here in this playoffs. He is out here playing defense like he's the best defender on the team. Now, he's not, but he's giving the effort. And so when you want to come out and you want to say, hey, Luka Doncic is only an offensive guy, he doesn't do anything on the defensive end, that's a lie. So what is the narrative that propelled you to Jokic? Because Jokic is being eaten alive right now in this series. We're seeing the end of this team, and we're seeing these Nuggets get put back in their place by a team who is young and up and coming, and a guy who's not afraid of any freaking moment. Anthony Edwards is going to ball on anybody, and he doesn't care who you are, what you've done in your career. He doesn't care about how many awards you got. He doesn't care about anything that you've done in your past. He cares about right now. And what you're doing right now is being a defensive liability to your team, Jokic. So why don't you fucking step up instead of being a fucking award-catching guy who wants to sit on TV and be like, oh, I don't care about these awards. Shut the fuck up and ball.
Yeah, and if Joker would have averaged like 34 points, even if he would average 30, okay, give it to him. That's a hell of a stat line. But yeah, it just didn't meet my opinion. No, I get it. Top 5, top 4, okay, I understand that. But I don't even think top 3 he was this year. And playoffs, we unfortunately can't use that as a criteria, like I was trying to tell Jake with Brunson. I get it. Like Brunson, you know, he's got some guys hurt now in the playoffs that got hurt. I get it. But it's a regular season award. I get it. Now that's where Julius Randle injury comes into play. And then being a 2 seed, yeah, they made the 2 seed. Now that I can understand. I can understand Shaq. I can understand Anthony Edwards. Anthony Edwards had a great year as well. And, of course, Luka. I mean, it's just I thought the 4 of them were more valuable this year. Not saying they're better players.
No,
historically.
Nobody's questioning where Jokic is on the all-time list when we're talking about this year's MVP. What we're saying is what you did this year comparative to the other guys that are on the list that could be MVP. And the impact that those guys had on the win-loss ratio and the impact that they had on their team's trajectory coming into the season to where they ended, right? Those are the things that are the separators. And I just don't know what narrative they were using when they, and for the criteria when they made their votes.
Yeah, it's just like we said with the two main sports that we watch, basketball and football. MVP doesn't mean you're the best player. If that's the case, then you make an argument that every year Tom Brady and Peyton Manning, yeah, Peyton won 5 and Tom I think won 4 or 3, whatever. Aaron Rodgers won 4. So like you would make a case that Peyton Manning and Tom Brady should win MVP every single year. You make the case that LeBron James and Kobe Bryant should win MVP every single year. That just doesn't happen because unfortunately Peyton Manning and Tom Brady.
Wrap it up. Patrick Mahomes is going to be MVP for the next 10 years.
Yeah. He should be MVP. Now, I get it. He's a 2-time MVP. And the years that he got MVP, he deserved. Well, especially the first year where he dropped 50 touchdowns. Okay.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
And then even last year when he won the Super Bowl, not 2023, 2022 season, he was the MVP. He was the MVP. I'll give him that. Now, it wasn't maybe as definitive as the first time he won, but he was the MVP. And the years between, Lamar Jackson had a better year in 2019. Lamar Jackson had a better year last year, in my opinion, if you're asking what they did with their collective team. And Lamar was more valuable those 2 MVPs he won. Now, I'm not sure who won it in between. I forgot. I have to look at it.
It was Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers won Green Bay.
Yeah, back to back. And we had our second one. I don't think Aaron Rodgers should have won, but that's no here or there. But yeah, that MVP we're not saying is the best player. We're just saying that year they are more valuable to their team in different ways. But no, Alan, great show. I mean, it was good to get you back. I know Chris is dying to get in here as well. We're trying to get a football live episode, hopefully Monday. We just kind of want to do some things kind of like where we're standing at going into the offseason. Maybe I was thinking like players with the most pressure, Joe Burrow, Trevor Lawrence. Those are my 2 top names. They have the most pressure going into the 2024 NFL season. Just kind of where we stand at, storylines maybe we can look forward to going into the offseason, going to preseason. Obviously, basketball we're going to keep up with. We're in the conference semifinals, so there's down to 8 teams left. And it's anyone's game out, well, besides the Pacers.
I love where the NBA has kind of evolved into the space that they've come into, because yes, the West is so competitive this year, but we're seeing in the playoffs that the East is also competitive. I don't think anybody really had the Cavs on their radar because of how they played during the season, but I think that, my analysis on the Cavs going into the playoffs was kind of spot on. I really think that the Cavs have an opportunity to compete for a championship, to make it to the finals. I think that the Celtics, they coasted their way to a number 1 seed. They were hands down the best team throughout the year, but again, teams don't take the regular season as serious, and you get into these playoffs and you get out coached, you get out hustled, and you get outplayed. And I really think that in the West, it's kind of a crapshoot now at this point. The Nuggets got their backs on the wall. You lost 2 games at home. This could very easily turn into a sweep. Now, do they have that championship mentality and come out and play? Yeah, I think that they can go and steal a game. They can definitely steal a game.
Would I be surprised if they won Would I be surprised if they won both games in Minnesota? I would not shock me. It would not. Now,
no, I don't think anybody thinks that would be a shocker if they came out and flipped the script and then took back home court. However, I do think that their backs are against the wall, and if they have a clunker, they have a stinker, and they're down 3-0, there's no way that they're coming back in that series. I don't care what you do.
No.
And Davis is going to put it away in game 4. But I also think that when we look at this Thunder and Mavericks series right now, the Mavericks are really showing to be a deep, well-coached, defensive adjusted team. They're coming out. They got 2 guys who can really just go out and get a certified bucket at any moment. They're hands down, one of the best teams. And yes, we get into these games where there's a big blowout, right? The Thunder came back well rested, and the Thunder came out and they played freaking phenomenal. Took that game by almost 30 points, in game 1, but game 2, none of that matters.
Well, it's one game at a time. Yeah, it's one game at a time.
And you saw that with the Celtics in the Cavs series. It doesn't matter that you won by 25 points. It does not matter that you came out and you smoked them in game 1. You can't just turn that on. Teams are going to be well adjusted in the playoffs. And the Cavs said, you know what? Hey, you got it. You got game 1. We're going to see you in game 2. And they came out and they balled. They came out and they played. They played the way that they could, especially with a good coach team. And then you look at the Knicks series too. How many guys can they lose before they start feeling the attrition of playing 45 minutes a game? I mean, Josh Hart is on a roll. I think he's played 48 minutes in every game over the last 5 games.
And they need him on defense.
But he is still juice. And the thing is that normally when guys play 48 minutes in the fourth quarter, they kind of fall back and they kind of lose that little bit of an edge. But they're going out, and in the fourth quarter is where they're getting the offensive rebounds, where they're getting the second chance points, and where they're making a difference defensively. So it's the hustle plays in the fourth quarter when they're dead tired. That's the mark of a great coach right there. And Thibodeau has a track record of going out and just running his teams ragged into the dirt, into the grounds. But this team really is built to be able to withstand that and take it and go out and play their best ball. And so, I think that we're seeing to bring this all back into my point when it comes to the NBA. I just love this space that we've evolved into where it is so wide open who is actually going to compete for a championship. And there's so many opportunities for teams that we didn't think about, or for teams that, we didn't think were competitive at the time, are now showing themselves to be championship level defenders, championship level offensive teams that are coming out and have an opportunity to win. So I really love the space that we're in.
No, yeah, it's great, man. Like I said, it's good for the people that watch hockey. Like the NHL looks like it's good. I mean, I usually get around this time is when I start watching some hockey. Baseball is kicking back up. Aaron Judge. I can't wait to get baseball back on the docket. Aaron Judge is warming up now. Like I said, yeah. April struggles, and I was getting a little nervous it was going to kick into May because it was starting to be a little sluggish. But he's warming up.
Shout out to the Miami Marlins. All right, we keep on winning. We keep on winning, so that the front office is like, trade away guys right now. Stop winning. Stop. Why are you still winning? We're just going to trade away our shortstop. We're going to trade away our pitcher. We're going to trade away all these guys. Give us back prospects. I don't know why we're still winning. What are we doing?
This Saturday, May 11th, you're going to, in our chats on Discord, Chris and Jake, and probably myself, and maybe even Doc, we'll be talking a little baseball with Paul Skeens, Livy Dunn's boyfriend. Yes, that's what his title is now. So congrats to him. He's going to be making his call up for the Pittsburgh Pirates against the Cubbies. But football's coming up around the corner too. I said offseason's coming up. Alan, great episode. We can't wait to get back here live, hopefully next week. Hopefully also a basketball episode next week. And maybe when everything kind of cools down in Florida, we'll get Jake and Doc in here for some baseball talk as well. Alan, shout out to you and shout out to the rest of the boys. I'm Mark Davis. This is All About the Boss Podcast. Please follow us on all our socials right there on the bottom. All About the Boss Podcast on TikTok. Hopefully we get that for more than 9 months. Facebook, we're creating a page. YouTube, Apple, Spotify podcasts, iHeart, all that stuff. Please follow us. Like I said, this is All About the Boss Podcast, and we are out. Thank you for checking out another episode of All About the Balls Podcast. We want to thank all of our listeners and supporters of the Sack House. You can listen to the show on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. And don't forget to subscribe and give us a follow on Twitter and Instagram at the Sack House.